All right. We're here. We're back, as we do. We got a guest. Furqan is here in the house.
How's it going, guys?
What's up?
So, background, who's Furqan? Furqan is my co-founder, CTO at Bebo before we sold. And we've been working together, I don't know, 5-6 years now, maybe 6-7 years.
Yeah, it's getting towards 7, I think.
It's one of those things where you just keep saying 5 years, no matter how long it's been.
But he has an interesting background before that.
Very good background. You want to give us give the highlights.
All right. The highlights, I grew up here in the Bay Area. I got started just programming as a kid. And so I had a unique experience where I worked at a .com when I was 15. And that was kind of like a
Were you going to high school at the time, or did you drop out?
I was going to high school. I had just finished my sophomore year, and I was really into computers. And my dad was like, hey, I know this guy. They need to hire some people. They're looking to make like a website at the time. They had a router for hotel rooms. So it was like hotels wanted to put in DSL and kind of like good internet. And they're like, oh, we needed this interface, like the Linksys interface for your router now.
Just the HTML side of things.
Yeah, and HTML at the time was really nothing. It was like you could put some stuff, and I showed my dad how to make a menu, and he was like, wow, this is like groundbreaking. There's no JavaScript. There's nothing.
How much were you getting paid at 15 to do this?
If I had worked the whole year, it would have been about $120K. So
wow.
Pretty ridiculous.
So this was .com boom.
.com boom, probably because they're hiring 15-year-olds, but you know.
Right. And then that happens. Then you did an e-commerce thing.
Yeah, and so that company didn't work out, obviously, spending money.
Paying 15-year-olds $120K.
Exactly. And so I kind of was back at high school, and then I'm bored, and I'm really into computers and gaming. And, I had this idea that, like, hey, people like to kind of trick out their cars. Like, they like to put lights and, fun things in their car. We're like, why don't people do this with the computers? People are really passionate about it. And so I looked it up, and I found some forums online. And people were doing this. It's just there was nowhere to buy things. There's nowhere to do things, especially here in the U.S. So I started an e-commerce store kind of accidentally. I was like, oh, like these things are really expensive. If I buy them in bulk, I just get them cheaper. I'll sell off some. I'll have some more cash on the side. And I think we started $800 of stuff in the corner of my garage. And then within the first year, we did $1 million of revenue.
Wow.
And it was like
How old were you?
I was 17. So
Holy
I was
shit.
in high school at the time. And so that was pretty crazy because it went from, one corner of the garage to full 3-car garage to living room, family room. Like there's boxes everywhere. My parents were super supportive of this, obviously, but and so that was kind of like the early days, I would say.
And then we'll fast forward because there's a lot more to the story, but we'll do the highlights. So if I'm listening to this, whenever I ask people their background, really what I'm trying to say is give people a sense of who you are, and also it's kind of just like credibility. It's like, why should you be interested in what I have to say?
You're trying to impress people.
Yeah, it's like this is the time to basically brag. So I'll brag for you because you're a pretty humble guy. You don't brag a lot. So the other interesting parts are took a couple years off, played poker professionally, kind of in Europe, traveling around. That was fun. When you came back, did your own startup, failed. But then the next startup, which you started with Adam and a couple other guys, you guys tried and failed on a bunch of ideas. I think probably 9 ideas.
Yeah, it was about 9 ideas across 2 or 3 years that we tried. Kind of, one idea I would say was real serious. We tried that for about 9 months. And then you're going through like 3-month chunks of like really bad ideas and attempts, and my favorite anecdote of this whole time, because I think this is very, very, you don't hear people talk about this, was sometimes when you guys were in between ideas or it wasn't working, what did you do? You'd come to the office and do what? We would just play FIFA all day. I mean, literally.
That's what you guys did at Monkey Inferno.
Yeah,
we would do it for like an hour. These guys would just like, that was the day.
Yeah, it was like 8 hours of FIFA. Oh, man, that was a tough day. Let me get back home and kind of get back to it. But
and did you think that was weird? Like, Adam and those guys had success. So if part of you was probably like, look, if these successful guys think this is all right, this can't be too bad. But, like, I would be anxious if we were doing that.
There was some anxiety, but they were super calm and collected. So that kind of was like, well, why am I worried? Like,
well, so Adam was pretty wealthy.
Yeah, he previously worked on a couple of ad tech companies, and they had grown to be pretty big. I would say like, one was worth maybe 50 million, and the one before that might have been in that range too. And so he had done some stuff. John, who's the other co-founder there, had worked at like VMware early, and he had worked at ad products like that got bought by.
And they were self-funding the company.
Yeah, they were self-funding, and so
I cannot believe how I would be like, no, we're getting to work.
I'm self-funding
like, this is my
FIFA
fucking
game.
money.
Yeah. And I think we worked hard. I mean, the cool thing was you sat around, you talked about things. You got
how many
excited
people?
about ideas. We were probably like 5 or 6 people at
Got
the
it.
time. So it was pretty small. It wasn't, I mean, we had a good office in Palo Alto, bigger than we needed, but you could tell they're not worried. I shouldn't be worried. You sit around for a week, you get some ideas, then you go and work on them, and it all felt pretty natural at that point.
And the outcome of this was what?
Yeah, so you cracked the nut finally.
Yeah, so we had, they had a previous background in ad tech. We had made this product called AppLovin. That was an app where you could see what apps your friends were using. So it was like a social network where if you're playing Candy Crush, it says, hey, Sam's playing Candy Crush and you should play too. And we're like, wow, this is pretty interesting. People really convert with this. This should just be an ad product. And then that kind of drove it and said, wait, we should just make a real network out of this. And then we sat down, we built that for a couple months, and then it kind of skyrocketed after that.
And how big is it now?
They're really massive now. It's been a while since I've been over there, but a couple years back they had a big liquidity event over 1.4 billion. So, and I think they've probably grown in multiples since then. But.
Yeah, I mean, I heard that it sold like only 3 years after it started.
Yeah, it was really fast.
It was doing like 600 or 700 million in revenue, like some crazy number.
Yeah, it was magical to see what product market fit really looks like. Like, I always thought, oh, these things are working. No, they weren't working, and this was what working looked like. And it was probably one of the best versions of it. So maybe my view is a little skewed on that. But the first month, it was like, man, we just jump up to like 10,000 plus in revenue a day. And then you just kind of keep skyrocketing up from that. And like, it's pretty crazy as an engineer too, because now your servers are being hammered. You're like running around all night, like pulling all-nighters just because money's flowing and you got to kind of keep it up. And so that was kind of crazy but fun.
So the AppLovin story is $4 million in self-funding initially. Then they raised a small strategic round, or I don't know exactly what the total is, but about $5 million total funding, right?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it was.
And then the first liquidity event, they sold a portion of the company to a Chinese company for over 1.4 billion. And so that's like massive capital efficiency. You were, CTO, kind of co-founder there. So we met after that. We started working together, became, really good friends and have built a bunch of stuff together. And what I like about you, which is why I wanted you on the podcast, is not necessarily, we're not even going to talk too much about AppLovin. That's just establish who you are. You are like me, you're an idea guy. You always have a bunch of ideas. You see interesting stuff, but you're deeply technical, but then get the business side and the product side too. And there's very few people who do that.
I'm definitely going to ask about AppLovin in a little bit.
Okay,
before we even get to the ideas, I got to tell you something real quick because this is related.
Yeah.
So my best friend started Vungle, which was AppLovin's competitor. They raised $16 million. When they got acquired, they had $100 million in cash. What did it sell for? 750, half of what you guys sold for. Very successful. Yesterday, this was after you left.
Yeah.
So we have to apologize a little bit. Yesterday, Lance Armstrong popped in and our episode got ruined. Kind of ruined. Or
made.
Or made, whatever. It was hectic. And we did this thing. It was cool. Shaan, you left.
Yeah.
Jack was here. It was me and Lance and Adam and Jack just chilling right here. And Jack's kind of savanty. Like, he's like real smart, but he doesn't pay attention to a lot of things. And we were talking about the podcast, and I was saying, Lance, how big's your podcast? He said it's like whatever, 100,000 listeners. He goes, it took me a long time to build that up, after I got cut off. And Jack was like, what, cut out? What do you, like, what happened? Like, Apple shut you down or something? He goes, no, like from the incident that happened 7 years ago, like like everything dropped off. And he goes, Jack was like, what do you mean? And Lance looked
to explain it.
Lance looked at me and he goes, he's like, is this guy serious? I'm like, yeah, dude. He's like a business savant is what happens. He doesn't know. And he goes, this is awesome. Sam, you got to bring more people like this around me. And Lance goes, Jack, I basically went from hero to zero overnight. Like, I lost everything. Yeah. And Jack was like, oh, okay. He's like from it was hilarious.
That's amazing.
That's awesome.
And if you, Jack did a whole episode and you can kind of tell he's like, and the stuff he cares about, he's so deep in the weeds.
He's like Rain Man.
And then other stuff he's completely oblivious to, which is awesome.
Yeah, it was so funny. And Jack started your guys' or maybe they were first, I don't know, but competitors. So it reminded me of that. So what do you want to do?
I want to hear some ideas. You said you have a story. Was that the story, or you have?
No, I'll tell it tomorrow.
Okay, cool. So we want to have guests that come in and bring their ideas, stuff they find interesting. So either little phenomenon they've observed, ideas they've been cooking up, something off their list they have on their phone, whatever it is. So do you have stuff like that? Do you have a list of ideas
He
you
does.
keep or no?
I wrote down some ideas for this. But I usually just keep them up here, and the important ones make their way out.
Let's talk about the process. Where do you get a lot of when do ideas come to you?
usually when I'm not trying to come up with an idea.
Like in the shower or
yeah,
whatever.
in the shower, driving, just kind of around, not really thinking about anything, and then something pops up. The second one I would say is like when I'm reading online, like if you read something interesting, you're like, wait, that's cool, but it would be cooler if it was, and then like that's kind of where my mind wanders.
I think that the best idea is you just steal.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So like it's kind of like that. You're like, oh, but what if you applied it? Like the way this restaurant's working, they should actually apply that to like
Right.
Indian food, and it would be way bigger.
Right.
Yeah, it's like remixing, right? It's like I want to sample some ideas real quick, and then I want to turn it into my own idea.
Right.
You know?
So what you got? What's interesting to you?
Okay, so I'll start with one that we went go-karting a couple weeks back. And so I'm really into kind of VR, AR. I mean, you know this. I've kind of gave you an Oculus just
Yeah.
so you can, feel my fun.
You gave him one?
Yeah, I gave him an
Great
Oculus.
gift, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I was like, Sean, you got to do this. You're never going to buy one on your own. You're going to be a skeptic forever. Here you go.
Are you using it?
Yeah, because he was telling me, he's like, there's this one thing, because I was skeptical. I was like, is there any good games? Like, what am I going to do with this? And he's like, dude, you got to try this Poker Stars thing. And I was like, okay, what is VR poker? Why do I need that? It is fucking amazing. It is like, have you tried this thing? Have you seen
Well,
it?
I've done boxing. I played all the games, but I didn't.
You got to
see
try
that
the
one.
poker one. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
I'm gonna go buy an Oculus just to play.
Yeah, seriously, you should. They're sold out, so it's going to be tough. But, maybe we can get you one too.
You really can't buy one?
Right now, they're out, dude. They're totally from Christmas. They just completely sold out, and then they haven't been able to refill it. They said it was January, then February, and now it's March, and then they're talking about all these delays from China.
That's a
right
good
now,
sign
and so-
for VR.
Yeah, I mean, they totally. It's the first device where I looked at it and I said I can give it to somebody that's not a VR junkie, and they would actually get excited about it. And I think the poker one is great because people want to build these really immersive experiences like boxing, but actually you don't really want entertainment like that all the time. I actually want more sit on the couch experiences.
Yeah.
And so, some of the things I've been thinking about in VR is like, what can I build while I'm on the couch?
Yeah.
And so this idea I had is not about that, but that was a tangent in VR. But we went go-karting, and when you go go-karting, it's really about how quickly you make these turns, how fast are you, how good of a driver are you, how aggressive are you, things like that. And afterwards, we were just kind of talking about some ideas, and I was like, dude, it would be cool if we could, go to a go-karting place, but it's like Mario Kart instead, where you have these AR goggles over your head, and it's not about quick turns, and it's like a longer track where you can kind of like have some space. But I, would digitally go over this box, and I now have a weapon that I could shoot at your car. And if I hit you successfully, your car kind of shuts down for a second, and you're stuck. So it'd be like the real-life Mario Kart.
Is this like the Sandbox thing?
So this would be like Sandbox or like Museum of Ice Cream. It'd be a place you go, put on this thing,
Correct.
and play with a bunch of friends.
I'm
or
big on
strangers.
Sandbox.
Like
That-
laser tag. It's like
Do you think
modern day
that's-
laser tag.
Exactly.
Do you think that Sandbox is a big business?
I think Sandbox is fantastic. I mean, it's hard to see if it's going to be successful or not because retail has all these problems and having space has all these problems.
But that's
if I
not
ignore
retail.
Well, yeah, it's not retail, but they kind of have retail spaces, right? Like they want to be
Brick
like,
and mortar, right?
Yeah, they want to be like in a spot where there's a lot of
Yeah, I mean
people
it's
walking
just
around.
an activity. It's just like escape room or something.
It's like escape room, but escape room, and I know guys who own like 200 escape rooms.
Are they awesome?
It's an amazing business because
Yeah.
escape rooms are super lightweight.
You don't do anything. You just have a room.
You have one person,
Yeah.
you buy the kit, and you just keep like reassembling the room, and you have these like very small
How
footprints.
big is that company?
Well, it's not one company, but it's like you can just own a different
Sorry,
franchise.
but yeah,
of
but
escape
like
rooms.
you can own a McDonald's franchise, but they still report revenues as one.
Yeah. Have you seen this escape
guy's
room right
private.
here? Like the
I've
one
never
across
been
the
in. I will never go to an escape room. That's my fear. I don't want to
It gets like
You're just-
claustrophobic.
because I'm really claustrophobic.
Oh,
I don't
okay,
like
yeah.
flying. No,
think
I will
in-
never go.
In general, VR or AR experiences are going to be, I think, fantastic. And you could see theme parks going to this. Like I heard about a theme park that has a roller coaster ride in VR where they give you goggles. You're in this kind of mechanical thing, but then you're actually in a dungeon and there's lava and like it's a totally immersed experience. And I think that people are going to experience it first like that. And I could totally see you coming up with all kinds of different content types, and whether it's Mario Kart or escape room. Or
That's a great
Sandbox,
point.
So
you know.
here's a cool model of this. I have a buddy who worked at this company called Bit Circus. Have you ever heard of them?
No.
So the founder, his dad started Chuck E. Cheese, as Nolan, whatever that guy's name is.
Atari guy.
Yeah, started Atari, started Chuck E. Cheese. Now his son started this thing called Bit Circus, and I love the concept. I think the son kind of, I don't know the guy, but like my read on the situation is just sort of like, ADD, wants to do a million things, not really like executing on this business as he should. But the concept's amazing. They go city to city, traveling circus like Cirque du Soleil or wherever, and they pop up this thing, and it's like a weekend thing where parents bring their kids, and all the attractions are like digital wonders. So it's like VR thing,
How big
an
is
AR
that?
thing, a hologram thing. And they were doing really well. Every city they were going to, they're selling out like crazy. But he was also getting distracted, and they were doing things like a company would be like, hey, we'll give you $500,000 to do our company retreat.
Yeah.
And then boom, the whole company, the CEO comes in and says, hey, we had to go do this corporate retreat. And the company's just like, dude, we need like one direction. But
Can you do me
I think
a favor?
it's amazing content.
Henry, can you look up Dave and Buster's revenue and look up Chuck E. Cheese's? I bet Chuck E. Cheese is owned by private equity.
Chuck E. Cheese probably makes a killing.
And if you've gone to a Chuck E. Cheese,
They're way
Chuck E.
down.
Cheese
They
has
went way
gone
down.
They're
to
going down.
shit.
They're like,
Well, where I'm from in Missouri, where they were probably popular, it's like where like trashy poor people go. I mean, it's pretty
Yeah.
whack. Like I wouldn't go there because it was famous for like the parents would fight, get drunk and fight.
You go get divorced.
Yeah, like Chuck E. Cheese. It was like Pee Wee Hockey and Chuck E. Cheese. That's like where parents get drunk and fight. What's the number?
Dave and Buster's is 332 million.
And by the way, does it pick up Henry when he says this stuff?
No, they.
So we have to repeat it.
Yeah, repeat what he said.
332 million for Dave and Buster's and 896 million for Chuck E. Cheese.
Annual
Fuck.
revenue. So Dave and Buster's
Yeah,
$330
okay.
million. Chuck E. Cheese almost $1 billion annual revenue. But definitely ripe for like doing something new because these things are stale.
Is Chuck E. Cheese public? It just say it's a public company. Like
Trying to buy stock.
Well, I want to see what the income is.
trying to buy Chuck E. Cheese, you
Yeah.
know?
No, I'm into this. I think that these things are cool. I think I'm terribly into it. When I tried Oculus, I was like, I'm going to quit my company and only do this.
By the way, random story. I found this YouTube channel once that was talking about all these old brands that are just gone to shit, like a Chuck E. Cheese. And he was like, this guy just short stocks. And he was like, my short pick of the year is Tootsie Roll. And he was like, you ever met anyone who likes Tootsie Roll?
I love 'em.
He's like, people who like Tootsie Roll are all 35 and up. He's like, no kid wants Tootsie Roll. They go out for Halloween.
They're a public
If they
company?
get Tootsie Roll, they throw that shit away. He goes, Tootsie Roll has no other products. It's just Tootsie Roll, and their population is dying. He goes, secondly, the owner is like some 76-year-old woman who will never sell the company. So nobody can turn it around. Nobody can change it. That company's just going to
Tootsie
die.
Roll's is its own
Public
company.
company. And so
I
he
would've
was like,
thought
you
they
should
were
short the stock. So I watched this 2-minute YouTube video,
You
and I was
short
like, I took out a short position. It did great. It's been awesome.
That's badass. Is it public?
YouTube link over here. You
Yeah,
know,
this
like-
guy.
No.
They tried to go public and it collapsed.
So another thing that I would do, I love this. I would also Six Flags has had a hell of a turnaround.
A positive
So
turn.
the guy there's this guy named Bob Pittman, and he was one of the inspirations for me starting the hustle because Bob Pittman he created MTV when he was in his 20s, and then he went and started this thing called the Pilot Group, which launched loads of different email newsletters, including Thrillist, which is like a huge thing. It's like $1 billion media thing. Anyway, Bob Pittman is now the CEO of iHeartMedia, and formerly was also the CEO of Six Flags, and he turned it around. And it's really good. It's been around forever, and it ebbs and flows, but it's good.
Yeah, I think entertainment can always level up, and when you're leaving the house to go do something, the more immersed, the more exciting it is. That's what you want. Like, I can get all the rest of the stuff at home, but like that's why I think Sandbox is fantastic. Like, the only negatives I've heard is, hey, I've gone to it twice. It was similar content, but they're gonna work that out. They're gonna keep growing it. I think it's gonna be amazing.
I love this.
The spin-off of this idea for the lazy people that I had, because I was like, okay, you got to go to this place and go-kart. I'm like, all right, what's the other version?
Yeah, why
of
can't I
this?
stay at home?
Correct. So if you replace the carts with drones, and you let people sit at home on a controller and control these drones.
Real life
The
drones.
real life drones are flying around this warehouse, and I'm fighting you. And again, same thing. It's all digital, so I can hit something, shoot you. Your drone just like flies and breaks. You got to go start over again. At
So
the
there's
start.
a pit of people who just go pick up
Okay,
the
so
drones.
Yes.
all right, I can add to this. There's this guy I know. I don't know if they're public, so I won't talk about him yet. But anyway, he's got what they did was in Vegas or in Nevada, where it's really cheap. They bought something like 100 or 1,000, a significant amount of claw machines. You know claw machines?
Like
Yeah.
for arcade machines?
Yeah. And you download the app and you pay a certain amount of money and you control the claw machine remotely.
Fantastic.
And it picks up the item and drops it down to the thing.
I've
And then
seen
you
this.
just get
It's huge in Japan.
you just get emailed like
They
a
ma-
gift
they
a
mail
gift
you the
card.
thing, yeah.
Or I don't know if I don't know what the mailing system is. I don't know if you actually get mailed that thing or if it's a gift card that you get sent. But
I saw my friend doing this on his phone. I was like, what are you playing? What game is that? He goes, oh, there's an arcade in Japan and I'm controlling the claw.
So
I was like,
You
what?
showed me this.
Yeah,
I
that's
think.
crazy.
We had talked about it at some point.
okay, but here's how my buddy's building this business. He's building it to be like he's building it to where it's gonna take off and they're gonna capture all the value and it's just gonna slowly die.
I guess if you
He's
took
a known fad, basically, is what you're saying. Like, he knows it's a fad.
Yeah, which I love. I like those things.
Right.
But that's how he's
you
building
could
it.
do it on like Wish products because they're so cheap that you could kind of like have some subscription thing where it's like, hey, you actually get one random Wish product.
Right.
But,
That's
you know,
what Wish
it's a
should do.
claw.
You're browsing Wish, and after 2 minutes, it's like, enter bonus round. You have the claw in our warehouse. Pick something up.
I'm into this. I think
Alright,
it's cool.
awesome. Yeah.
All right, what else you got?
Okay, so have you guys used?
Wait, hold on. Here's what we'll do. Actually, the next couple of days, I'll come prepared with some Six Flags and Chuck E. Cheese numbers.
Okay, cool.
Excellent.
I'm interested in
I
this.
want to hear these numbers too. So.
I want to know what the startup costs are for Sandbox VR.
And I'm curious, tweet at us if you like, because we nerd out on like, I wonder how that business does. And we go look up the numbers and figure out who this guy is, who's Bob Pittman, and how much income do they make. I don't know if we're unique in that, but if you like that stuff, like either in the Facebook group, just My First Million, or on Twitter, tell us if that's like, just be like more of that or less of that. Just be honest.
Yeah, that's great. You know, you're gonna get your listeners to tell you what they
We'll
love.
see what happens.
Yeah,
Awesome.
because that's the weird thing with podcasts. You don't know what they want. You know?
What else?
So in general, like I look at themes. So it's like, okay, Apple releases a bunch of random devices. So I'll call them AirPods, not really random, but this Apple Pencil. I don't know if you guys have seen this.
I have one.
You know?
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's what's
Yeah.
125
And
bucks.
It's expensive, and like the iPad Pro is expensive. But then I'm like, great, this new capability is there. What product exists for it? And so, recently I've been kind of playing around a lot with the iPad, and I'll kind of try to show you guys this.
I can hold the mic or.
Do you use are you one of the like computer? You get rid of the computer, only use iPad?
I'm.
'Cause I think that's weird. I think it's fucking weird.
It's. I like this in certain cases. Like when I'm traveling, it's a lot better than me lugging around my laptop.
Did work pay for that?
No, this is mine. So I just.
Furqan doesn't like to submit expenses,
Oh
like
yeah,
reimbursement.
I'm really bad with stuff like that.
When we
I
sold
just get
Bebo,
it.
how many unreimbursed things? How much dollar amount did you have? I bet it's like in the
It's-
tens of thousands.
Yeah, it's definitely in the 5-digit range. I should be better at that, but you know what?
Adam did that. I had to pay him $5,000 because he wouldn't like submit shit.
Life has been good to me, so I'm not really gonna complain
Not stressing
about
it.
anything, you
Yeah.
know. But let me pull this up.
So the general theme is like new hardware comes out. What can I do with this?
Yeah, that's the general theme. And so one of the things I've been playing with is this app called Flow, and it's basically like this kind of whiteboard app, right? And so it's kind of hard to show, obviously, but the idea for me was, you sit in a meeting room, right? And you love the whiteboard. You love getting up and moving.
Yeah, he does
A
that
lot of
shit
people
all the
love
time.
The whiteboard, but they don't like. You like getting up. That's
I
what you go
like to
with.
get my Steve Jobs on. Just-
Well, he always has like analogies over shit. He's like, we're trying to build a race car, but let's start with the bicycle.
Yeah, that is the analogy that we go with. And so the idea was, okay, you take this kind of experience with the iPad and pencil, but this whiteboard over here should just be digital, right? So if I want to show you something, I just start drawing here, and it just shows up there. You're like, no, and you want to kind of feed off of it, and like we could just have our own.
Okay, so
iPad.
for those who can't see what he's saying, so he's basically saying you got a little iPad in front of you, a little tablet. You're in a big meeting room. If you should be able to quickly sketch something or write something or draw something, and it just use the whiteboard as a display like it's a TV, basically.
Correct, and then it's remote friendly, so everybody can get the same whiteboard experience. Because I mean, what happens if you're remote?
That happened to me yesterday. I was remote conferencing in. The guy gets up. He's like, "Here's what this really means." He drew something on a whiteboard I can't see, and everyone in the meeting was like, "Oh yeah, that makes total sense."
And you're like,
I'm just the little
So
bitch on video
I've
conference.
talked to a bunch of people. So do you know this guy named Wayne? I forget his last name. He sold something to Twitter.
Yeah, they're doing digits now.
Ma, or is
Yeah.
it Ma?
I think it's Ma or Ha.
Anyway, I was
something.
talking to him. He said they're 100% remote, and I was like, "How do you do that?" Because we're struggling with this whole whiteboard thing. And he was like, "Man, there's this one app that they never update, and that's kind of what we've hacked together to use. This is a problem that."
yeah, I think people are going to remote work both because there's really good talent elsewhere that you're like, man, this is a perfect fit, but you're not here, and that's not a good enough reason anymore. And then the second thing is just cost. Like if you're in the city, like people, they kind of don't like, they don't want to pay that much for their housing.
So
rents like that.
just basically making the whiteboard work for remote workers.
Yeah, and also,
Or even if you're here, yeah.
yeah, like I still want a big view of it if I'm here. Like if we're all here, we want to get that. but
That's
you don't-
badass. I'm into it.
And so the pencil and the iPad, I think, is a good combination to where people will have that around. I think it'll become more common. Now you can kind of connect all these groups together.
So last podcast I was saying meeting tech, stuff
Meeting
that
tech.
makes meetings more effective and efficient because so many billions of dollars are spent in people's time in meetings.
Do you know how cheap? I mean, it would cost way less than you think to make this. You know that? Okay, this is a
Screen.
This is a 55-inch. I think out there we have a 65-inch TCL 4K. Or no, we didn't get the 4K. 1080p. You know how much that costs?
It's like $399 now. It's pretty.
No. It was like $250 or
Yeah.
$180. Like, it's like
It's probably cheaper than this whiteboard.
That's the retail price.
yeah, like on Amazon, I bought it for I think for sure less than $300, maybe less than $200.
Yeah, I believe it. Screens are really cheap, and so where else can you put screens? And I think you can actually enhance the meetings. If somebody puts up slides, I want to write over the slides. Like I think you unlock more capabilities than just supplement what you have today. And I think that's where this will become superior than us going to the whiteboard with those Expo pens and kind of writing there.
Right.
And so
Meeting tech.
Yeah, meeting tech. All
I
right,
didn't
cool.
get it
I like
yesterday. I mean, I was
But now you're getting it.
you didn't
buying a
have
little more.
you.
I didn't have good
He
examples.
said a meeting in a box.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad.
I liked your other idea of the point of the meeting. The AR.
I was
points.
trying to get to that, but then I fumbled the initial thing. I said meeting in a box, and it sounded stupid to me.
And then
so I
Lance
aborted.
Armstrong showed up.
Yeah, Lance Armstrong showed up, and I felt like a
This is
chump.
So the other
It's a
one,
meeting in a box. That was fucking stupid.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
The other one I like is so everyone has AirPods on now, right? And I think AirPods did one thing like Apple does really well is nobody wanted to walk around with a Bluetooth headset, right? I think we all agree you didn't look cool. You looked like you
Tacky.
didn't want to look.
It was a known douchebag thing.
Yeah, it was like
it was like having the cell phone on your belt.
yeah,
Like
great analogy, perfect. And so I was like, great, people have AirPods now, and so what else can you build with this? Again, Apple's unlocking capabilities in hardware, so what software can you build? And so there's two ideas. One's mine, one's somebody else's, but I'll take it as my credit.
Yeah, exactly. Whoever says it, it's theirs.
Yeah. Exactly.
by the way, Apple or AirPods, how much
10 million units.
Yeah, it's
in the
crazy.
last X amount of time.
so what's that? Is that 10 billion in sales?
Yeah, just multiply by, let's say, 100.
It's
It'll
a
just be
billion
roughly.
plus in sales, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be a Fortune 500 company.
Yeah, I agree. It's fantastic. And so one of the things that I was thinking about was, great, if I have these on all day, can I just have this on kind of connected to like my wife or like somebody, right? And
Right.
so whether you do it for work or for personal, you always have it on. There's no audio flowing. But then if I'm like, hey, Sean, what's up? It knows, do you have your AirPods on? If it doesn't, it tells me, hey, he's not there, but you can record a message. You'll get it later.
Right.
But if you're there, you'll just hear my audio. And you still aren't on yet. You kind of opt in again to be like, yo, what's up, man? Like, and it's like, how do you take the phone call away from like that? And you're like, I'm not going to give this capability to everybody. There's a couple close people in my life, like my wife, that I'm going to be like, great, I just want to have this on and this capability that's there. And so
It's like in The Office, they do this. In the TV show The Office.
Oh, yeah, Jim and Pam have
and
their
Pam.
thing just constant.
Yeah, the
But
headset.
this is good because it's not on when you don't want it on. So let's say I have my AirPods in, you have yours in, and I'm walking around, I'm at lunch, I have this idea for the podcast. I basically just say, yo, Sam, what we should do is we should do this. And then you basically receive, but you're not sending back unless you say whatever, the keyword, like the
name
how
of the
Alexa
person or
works,
something.
right?
Like it's like Sean or whatever it is.
And that's way more lightweight than me picking up my phone and starting to type, or phone call, like who wants to do that, right?
yeah,
So
phone calls feel weird 100% right now.
Yeah. I'm less bullish on that than the first two.
Okay, well, we'll do that. The second version of this idea with AirPods was, Farza, right?
Yep.
So
What
these
is it?
guys were over.
Oh, your homie?
Yeah, one of our friends, and we're doing a small hackathon at the house, and he's like coming up with this idea again for AirPods. But he's
Wait. You're doing a hackathon at your home, like for fun?
yeah, just for fun.
Damn, that'd be
you do this like every week, right? Or like
Yeah.
2 weeks?
like. So what do you guys do?
Like Jake's here. Jake, did you go to the last one?
Yeah, we just kind of sit around a table. We're all on our laptops. We're talking about ideas. We come up with something, and we just kind of try to make it. Usually, you don't end up finishing on the first one, but then the second one you try again, the third one you try again,
God,
and it kind of
fucking
just
nerds
gets
are
better.
the
Jake,
best.
what'd you build? What'd you build at the last one?
You want me to talk about it? Yeah. So Jake was making this thing where he was like, it'd be cool if you could test your website from like locations around the world, but it would like video record what it looked like and how it loaded. So not only do you get this like technical
Not a
waterfall,
number.
Yeah, and then you can show people like this is how crappy our website looks like from some random country or in the U.S. and
Right.
what it looks like for other people. And so
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's really awesome.
everyone's kind of testing numbers, but I mean we're a visual.
Yeah,
creatures,
what you
right?
care about is, oh, look how long that took to load. Look how shitty this looks.
Have
on
you heard
this
of
device.
user testing? Is it user voice or user testing?
testing, yeah.
You know user testing? That's like $150 million a year business.
Shout out to my mom, works at user testing.
Really?
Oh, there you go.
It's huge, right?
It's big. They're trying to go public, so that means they're at that scale where they're doing 100 million plus.
Yeah, and all they do is there's someone in the Midwest who's cheap who
Screen records.
He goes, all right, well, let me look at your website. Okay, I'm scrolling down. I don't really know
So
what
that's
this
more about
means.
like confusion. This is more about performance.
No,
right?
but they're
You get both for
They're
the
similar. They're similar issues.
Yeah, and I think today he's looking at it like a performance tool, like how do you kind of make it load well. But I think you could totally look at it and apply some machine learning to it, where it's like, this doesn't seem to work well. It's below the fold on these devices, right? Like some of those things when you design it and then you like put it together, you're not thinking, oh, what does it look like on the iPad?
Right.
And then you kind of just show it like that, and then you have a video, but also it could detect and say, man, this is like your main button.
That's
It's
awesome.
showing up down here, and you could operate.
What are you gonna do with this?
Good job, Jake. I like that project.
We'll figure it out.
Okay,
it
so
called?
what were you saying? What was the other
Okay,
project?
so this idea was around cooking, and you're like in a kitchen, and you're like, oh, I want to like hear these recipes and things like that. And so again, your hands are dirty in the kitchen.
Yeah.
What do? You pull out your phone, your laptop. It doesn't make sense, right? Like, and so the idea was you have your AirPods on. It kind of walks you through the steps, and you can go next, go back, and it's like a little recipe thing. I forgot the name that he came up with for it, but I think you could come up with a better name for it. But
Kitchen in a box.
yeah, kitchen in a box. There you go. I think he called it like kitchen pods or something, and I was like, that doesn't.
Right.
That's kind of too
Have you?
technical.
Okay, so this guy named Andrew Mason. You know that name.
Yep.
He started Groupon. He a few years ago, his second act, he started this thing.
Detour.
Detour. There it is. They shut it down, and he pivoted to
Descript.
Descript, a podcast thing.
Look at us. Look at
Yeah,
us.
there we
Look
go.
at this.
And anyway, what was the first one? Detour. It was awesome. It was so cool, and this was before AirPods.
So
And
explain did you do one?
So, I used to do them all the time, but I understand how it wouldn't be huge. But I was a power
Cool
user.
product, not a great business.
Yeah, and so what it was is, you know how when you go to a museum and you have a guided tour that says like, all right, when you get to this point, press this thing, and then you press the button, and you're like,
It'll
all right,
tell you about it.
You see this painting? You see, there's a small little smudge that you'll see up left. That what happened when he got angry. He did whatever. So what they do but they do it for cities. So it's guided walking
that's
tours.
really interesting.
But you know This American Life, like how it's like really highly produced podcasts where you can like hear noises, and they did that, but it was worked with your GPS, and what they would do is they would say, all right, walk past the street, past Bush Street, keep walking, and then it would play music, and then it would tell when you got there. And it would say, now look down to your right. You see that hole that was there? That actually came here from this time. And it's awesome. It's so cool. But he shut it down. Anyway, what you're describing is almost like the cooking version of that.
Right, the
Yeah.
utility version of
Which
that.
would be significantly larger than the Detour version, because you cook all the time. The Detour version, I would do it on when my wife was out of town, I had nothing to do.
And it does suck to have your hands covered in food and then be like, oh, let me go to my iPad or my phone and like try to like scroll and click and zoom and like figure out this recipe. How many tablespoons was it supposed to be?
Has there ever been a big business built around recipes other than an ad-based media company?
Not sure. That's the problem with a lot of these ideas. You start thinking too far ahead. You're like, I don't want to go do this thing because what does it turn into? But I think generally the concept, if you took guided tours, like that concept, and you said, what else in my life could be guided?
That's interesting.
I think there's a couple of very interesting businesses there, or at least interesting products, right?
Totally interesting products. Maybe interesting businesses too. Totally interesting
I
products.
think there's a workout version of this that's doing all right, which is like you go to the gym and it's like in your ears and it's music plus
Aptiv.
telling you what to do. Yeah,
I use
Aptiv.
it all the time. Aptiv, you know what that is?
No, I haven't seen it.
It's similar. I use it on a regular basis. I pay $100 a year for it. Ethan spoke at HustleCon. Tens of millions in subscription revenue. It's what you're describing, but it's for working out.
So I think if you have a great product in a space where a lot of people are doing it, you can come up with a business plan like $100 a year that matches some.
I agree with you.
So people cook, people go to the gym. Like, what else are they doing day to day? Like, I think guided meditation is another one that. Like,
Oh, yeah.
is really
There's
big,
the model.
obviously.
Right.
And so there's probably 5 others in that space, but I think AirPods made it different than Bluetooth headsets and headphones. Like.
So here's a little
I think
guided
he's on
meditation
fire.
one. Yeah, no. That's why we bring him in. That's why he gets the seat. For meditation, a lot of people don't like to sit and meditate. Like that just doesn't do it for them. Their mind races, all this stuff. And like the answer right now is like, no, that's the point. Do it. And like, sure, that might be true, but for a lot of people, what it means is like, fuck this, I'm gonna do something else. And so there's all these other types of meditation, like transcendental or whatever, where you're chanting. It's like a little more active. And and there's all kinds of meditation. Hiking is meditation. Exercise is meditation, because you're controlling your breathing in a certain way. You're clearing your mind space, and you're freeing your mind. And so I'm curious if somebody can do this sort of detour version that's about walking, and it's basically guided meditation, but it's active, not sit down on a pillow and do nothing for 30 minutes or whatever it is.
Yeah, like when I would do those detours, you did them, right?
I never did one.
Well, we did one. I did one where I went to the Castro, and it was all about the AIDS epidemic, and you got to know Harvey Milk, the gay activist that was like killed, whatever. He was a gay activist that was murdered, and it was during the 80s when the whole AIDS thing was going on. And the guy talking, he was like, "Now this is the last time that I hugged Harvey before he died." And then he's like, "Now this house up here, like these guys lived here, and on top these guys lived here. They all died." And I was like, so emotionally.
Right. Okay, that gets me thinking. I think this would be not. I don't think this would work. But yesterday you and Lance Armstrong were both like, the podcasts I like best are these true crime ones. What if you did a true crime version of the Detour thing, where it's murder mystery, kind of creeps you the fuck out as you walk around?
That's cool.
With real crimes from your city.
Yeah, or you have to. So on Trends, we did a report. We did a report on this. These app. What are those? What are those called again? The you know what I'm talking about.
Give
Serial. No, like these serialized video apps. That fucking the lady who started it. She sold her thing to Songify. Man, I gotta remember what it was. Anyway, you get, it's like choose your own adventure app.
Okay.
For thriller novels.
Watching things. Okay.
Interesting.
Basically, we did a report on it. Our hypothesis was that actually the erotic novels, romance novels, is the biggest segment.
Oh, you're talking about Hooked.
Hooked.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hooked.
Right.
Anyway, I think it's I don't know if it's a great business, but it's an okay one.
They scaled up revenue. Hooked was doing, I think, 20 million plus in revenue, if I remember.
Yeah, but I think churn was stupidly high.
Yeah.
Anyway,
also going for teens.
What we're describing is, and when we did the report, it was romance novels and thrillers had the highest performers.
Here's a general principle, though. Like, Hooked is the modern day Goosebumps. So when we were growing up, we would read Goosebumps books, and that was what hooked us as a kid, and you loved to read. And Hooked said, well, now every kid's got a phone. What if we delivered this through this kind of SMS format, but it's these like scary stories, Goosebumps style? And what you were talking about earlier with like, Chuck E. Cheese, modern day. If you're trying to brainstorm ideas, this is one format to think about. What did I love as a kid? What's the modern day version of that? And because
that's a great framework.
People's desires tend to stay the same.
Yeah.
It's the tools and technology that updates and opens up new opportunities.
That's a good framework.
Yeah.
Can I ask you about AppLovin?
Yeah, I got one more idea.
Oh, go for it.
So, I'll kind of plug a company I invested in too. So I invested in this company called Lucid Drone. I think I told you about it. They have they basically created a drone that can window wash big buildings. And so instead of sending like a 5-person crew and a scaffold and whatnot,
where did you find that?
They were a YC company. So YC produces still fantastic companies. I like these guys because it was like we got this. It's not just drone tech and then it's out of nowhere, but it's like
that is awesome.
Specific application.
Yeah, specific application. And then you think about it, you're like, 5 people hanging from a building or one guy working the drone from the bottom and washing it. And
are those legal?
Yeah, and so they're out there in a couple of cities. I think there's going to be small regulations they're going to have to go, but this makes sense. It's a lot safer and a lot better.
When did they come out of what company?
Saves you money if you're the building owner. Safer than having humans up there trying to wash windows. Sad way to lose a life.
What a bold idea.
Great idea.
And what they did is they actually stopped. So they tried to go to the building owners, and they were like, oh, man, the building owners are like, well, we have a service. Like, it's too complicated. So they went to the guys who were servicing the building. They're like, hey, I can make your business more efficient. Instead of sending 5 guys out per job, you could do 5 more jobs. Instead of renting this crazy scaffold, you just lease our drone. And it's like, you make their business more valuable. You're not taking their business, and then you don't have to go do all the building-to-building sales.
Oh, my God, I love this.
One way of looking at it was, we're going to put those guys out of business. Instead said, no, you're my customer.
Correct.
We make you more efficient.
Exactly. And I think that's some of the best tech I see is that. It's not about replacing the whole workflow. It's like, how do we make these people more efficient? How do we allow them to have more capabilities? And then they can do more, they can do a better job. And that's kind of like, I think, what I look for in the emerging tech, especially
Lucid Drones.
Lucid Drones.
So the other genius thing about that is if you wanted to do this, you would either have to go sell every building, and that's a lot of sales, or if you go to the company, like you said, the company that already does the window washing, they might have already 50 clients. So now one sale gets you 50
Man, that's badass.
buildings.
I'm big fans of boring things like window washing. I think that would be right up my alley. And to add this thing to it would be neat. It never, if you told me that someone had that idea, I'd be like, what? No.
Yeah. It's really interesting. And so my spin off the remix of their idea was probably you guys. I don't know if you have a car, right?
Yeah,
I have
and
a car.
So, great, you guys both have cars. So I thought maybe none of you guys would have cars out here in the city, but I never wash my car. I never go to a car wash.
Me neither.
You know, if I could just have a little drone that sits in my garage that can come up, wash my car for me every so often, or if you're in a place where it snows, like how do I pour some water on the windshield so I don't got to go do that and I can get into the car? Like that's what I want.
Oh, that's
So
pretty dope. I like that.
You know, this was like a huge failure, Cherry.
But that was humans.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that
we're talking about drones.
that
This is a Roomba.
yeah. No, I'm
Roomba
not
that
saying
washes your car.
Yeah,
totally.
exactly.
That
Remember washes your
failed.
car.
But I looked at like the background of why I was like, that's so stupid. Who would on earth think that was a good idea? It's a big thing in a lot of different countries. That and check this out: bringing gas to
Bring
your
gas
car.
to you.
Oh,
Yeah.
Bring gas to you.
In foreign markets, that's like the way that gas works.
So car washes, I say wash funny. I always have to correct or tell people I say it funny. Get prepared. Car washing.
Can you not say wash?
I can't say it's a Midwestern thing. Wash. I can't.
I was like, it's easy. It's easier
car washing.
than giving the disclaimer. Just-
No, I can't say. I can't say car wash. No,
You just can't do it.
all
my
good.
mouth does. It's like L's.
Now
and
you have your
R's for
interview
Asians.
Car
questions.
cleaning, you know?
Car cleaning.
If somebody says like, "What's your greatest weakness?" It's
I
like
can't say wash.
R's, rogue R's that just make their way into my words.
It's a Midwestern thing. A lot of people say it. Anyway, that's interesting. But I never would have thought. That's kind of cool. But how on earth could you build a machine that does it?
I mean, that's the thing.
Does the drone need to be pretty smart to do that or no?
You know, I think the thing I like about this technology space right now is a lot of the research work is done. And so people have made drones that can fly, that can follow you. Like there's literally Skydio.
Yep.
It's $1,000. You go running in the woods. That's their like demo video, and it follows you.
If you haven't seen this demo video, search Skydio.
Is that bullshit though?
It's amazing.
No, it works.
You literally go, you like throw the camera.
Well,
in
I've
the
seen
air.
there was-
The other one failed.
Yeah.
These guys say they can do it.
How about this? Go on YouTube and look up the users who are doing this, and they're recreating it, and you could see it works.
Okay.
And so,
For like snowboarding and skiing and stuff.
yeah, snowboarding is another one. I mean, and GoPro was like one step up, but now if you got this drone that can kind
Follow
of
you
catch
around.
these
God, I love this shit, man. Drones and VR just.
We need a drone filming this. That's just whoever's talking. It just turns to them
Oh,
and just
great.
does the cut.
It just picks up the right mic and the right,
Right.
person.
I had one of the first DJI ones and it fell out of sky at 1,000 feet.
Oh yeah,
It ruined it.
that happens. But a lot of this technology, there's been so much research work done that's moved it forward, and I think it's at the spot now where it needs application engineers and not that same. You know, you don't need to be a PhD with computer science and all these math degrees to go create this technology. You know, you take the work that they've built and they've kind of established, and then apply it to these things. And so, flying a drone is trivial now. Building a drone is trivial now. And then the software is easy to program a drone to fly. Object recognition and computer vision is easy now. And so you combine these two, let's call it easier technologies now, because of all the research work that was done, and then you can kind of create this product from it. And so I've built these small drones. They're like these little 4-inch drones. They're able to fly around.
You have?
Yeah. Yeah, I programmed my own flight controller. That one didn't work as well. I used a pre-programmed flight controller. That worked a lot better. But I get really excited about these technologies when I, without a college degree, without a deep technical expertise, can go and learn about it. And I really just use Google. Like that's my source for everything.
How
So,
old are you?
I'm 35.
You're one of the more interesting people I've ever met.
Okay, great. I'll take
Wow.
that. He met Lance Armstrong yesterday, so
Hey, he's blushing. Look at that.
He's not interesting. He's cool. I mean, he's interesting, but he's
take it.
He's
And what's
badass.
interesting to you?
He just my interests align with yours, but he's more intelligent and more technically savvy, and he could actually make the things that I wish I could make.
Yeah.
I'll definitely take it.
Can you talk about App 11? Because you said something. So the other day I was talking to someone about businesses, and I'm like, when it's working, do you know it's working? What's that feel like? And you made a comment earlier, like it's the first time I've ever seen where just
This is what working feels like.
Yeah.
right. What was that like?
It's the feeling of like when you're slamming on your brakes in the car and the car's kind of doing its own thing, and you're like, I'm not controlling the car, it is just flowing on its own. It's like it's that feeling where you build all these products, and even at App 11 we did 9 ideas. Before that I've done this for a long time where I'm just trying idea after idea. I try to get people to use it, and you're looking for all these good signals and you're trying to spot it. And then when it's really working, it's not about spotting it. It's so obvious that there's no question that it's working. And so it's all the charts are flying up, but then every day you're not even like, man, is it working? Is it not? It's so obvious. I got to do X, Y, and Z to solve, these problems that are coming up kind of day in and day out. And so it's definitely a feeling where the pull from the market is so strong that there's no middle ground. I always thought it was like, I'm going to kind of realize when I'm close to it, but it's actually very binary. It's like you're here and it's not working and you're trying to push into the market, which you need to do. But when it happens, it just kind of takes off. And, I don't have really good analogies for it yet, except for that. Like it's like the loss of control. The market is in control almost. And you're just like trying to catch up and like, get into that mindset of like, okay, great, this is working. We're going to keep like pushing whatever we need to do to kind of support this case.
What was the revenue growth? I mean, you guys were at 0, and then was it like 1 month it could have been like 20 grand, the next month it was like $1 million? I mean, was it that substantial?
It wasn't that crazy, but I think the interesting thing that I learned was there were a lot of players in the market where you'd go to this weather app, right? And the weather app would do like, you never realize the scale of some of these apps even at that time. It's like, man, this thing is doing 200 million, impressions per day. And I'm like, a weather app? Like, really? Like, why is it so big? And then you're like, great, if we get this customer, these things can happen. And so I think the market...
the weather app does how many impressions?
I think, I forgot which weather app it was, whether it was WeatherBug or the weather app, but it was like 200 million impressions a day. Like, and I was really surprised at some of the scale of some of these apps. And like, yes, we had the best ad platform. Yes, we made all these small tweaks to the product to like make it work better. And we made our server scale and we did all these things. But I think to me, the fascinating thing was there were all these major players. You didn't actually realize how big some of these opportunities were. And kind of working at AppLovin, I was like, wait, I want to go do this. And like, when I left there, it was like, I'm not like a huge fan of like ad products. Like naturally, that's not the product that I get excited about. I love money. So I like, great, it's a fantastic business. I like that. And then I was like, I'm going to go make these apps and games that are going to go do this. And actually, that's how I ran into Shaan. I think he had checked out one of my games after, I think we connected on AngelList. Was that right?
Yeah, I saw him on AngelList, and I was like, something doesn't add up. Either this guy's full of shit, because who would leave this company that's crushing it? Like most people, when you finally hit a grand slam, you want to do the victory lap, and people stay for 7 years, and then they write this cheesy letter about how great the journey has been, and they're finally ready for their next chapter. He basically left after 3 years. You weren't even fully vested, right?
Yeah, I left a little bit on the table, which, again, I'm not complaining because everything's been fantastic.
But it was something counterintuitive. I was like, why would this guy leave? Either he got kicked out, he got fired, he's not good, blah, blah, blah. I was like, or this guy's amazing. He really just does love. His story was like, I just love startups. I want to build something that consumers use, not really an ad tech platform. And he was like, I was interested in mobile because I saw how big these mobile apps were on our ad network. So he locked himself in his bedroom and was like, I'm going to learn mobile in the next 6 months. And he just built a bunch of Android games. And then I saw him on Twitter tweeting back with people who played his game. And I was like, dude, none of my developers, all the developers I have in my company that are great, none of them would ever go tweet at a customer and be like, hey, I'm going to fix that bug. I can make this better. Hey, what do you think about this? So I was like, there's something different about this guy.
What apps were you shocked at how big they were?
Slots.
A weather app does 200.
The casino game apps. I mean,
that's not shocking, is it?
The size of it was definitely shocking. Just because you always assume they're big and they're addictive, but then that and then Candy Crush in their initial rise was the first time in the industry where I heard like, man, like this thing is a money printing machine. It's like, they would, and not all of this was at AppLovin. It's like once you're in ad tech, you're like learning about the industry, you're meeting other people, and you're like, hey, these guys are willing to just blanket pay $8 for a user in the U.S. And I'm like, okay, well, that seems pretty expensive. Like, why are they doing that? And like, how much are they making on the other side?
$8 is what they were spending?
Yeah, I think at that time it was like, hey, for like a male, 18 to 35 or something, it might be $8 or something like that. And then on the other side, I talked to somebody over there, and I'm like, they're like, yeah, dude, we make like $20 on them, like in like 7 days. And I'm like, and maybe those numbers are slightly off, but like, they were making a multiple to where you were like, wait. So you just have this machine where you just press this button and you put in money, and 7 days later, 3 times more money come out. And I'm like, wow, like how do I get that? How do I empty my bank account every single day to go do that?
Well, you guys had that a little bit with AppLovin.
Yeah, AppLovin had that. I mean, I didn't have that, right? Like I don't have the same mechanic. Obviously, you're at this company, you're vested, you have a shared interest in the long run. But me being me, I was like, I want that. Like I want the ability to have that, and then the freedom to work on things that I'm really excited about. And so I tried that. Obviously, it's a lot harder than just one person in their bedroom doing it. But
what did Adam App 11 say? Was he like, this just we had no idea, or was he methodical enough to see?
Adam is so fantastic at execution that it's just like he's like a machine. It's like when the thing I really loved about him and the things I learned the most from him were like when you wanted to go do something, like sometimes you're like, oh man, this situation isn't working.
And
out.
Adam's the CEO of App 11.
Yeah, he's CEO of App 11. And you have these situations where it's like, I got to go do X, or you really feel like you got to go make this move. This deal's bad. Maybe this hire was bad, or this hire was good, or something like that. A lot of people kind of wait on it a little bit after deciding, and you kind of create some time. What's a good time to do it? For him, it was like, okay, we'll just go do this now. Like, what's stopping us? And then, the other things like that were, I started there as kind of an engineer, and then very quickly he was like, oh, you could run this team. You could manage the whole team. I was like, great. We talked, and then that's kind of always been my experience that like that never really gets communicated, and then it feels like, cool, I'm like the manager, but not. Like, I think a lot of people end up in that situation, especially in companies. And then like the next morning, it's like a meeting with the whole team. He puts the org chart up, and then every time we changed it, it was the same situation happened. He was so clear and effective with his communication and execution that I was like I really need to be like that. Like that's what like I think A+ execution looks and feels like day in and day out. And it's like it's not emotional. It's very logical. It's very quick. And I think speed in these situations helps create clarity because when you just,
or the other way around, clarity helped create speed.
Yeah, or both, right? Like and I think clarity in the sense that if you delay it, your team becomes unclear. And then it gets a little muddy, and then you're like, wait, what's going on here? Why is this guy kind of acting like that and that person not? And I think just being very fast and quick in that execution. Once you decide, you should go and execute it. And I think that's the thing that I learned is like how quickly can you do that, and how effectively can you do that? Whether it's an email, and I'm really not good at this. It's kind of one of the reasons I point at it because I see myself kind of like, oh, I'll wait on this a little bit or send this email tomorrow. I don't want to open up this can of worms right now. Like, and then it's actually that's the exact opposite trait. It's like just go have a bias for action and kind of go do that. And so from him, I learned just an amazing amount in like how do you operate at this level. And I mean, since I've left, they've grown so much that it feels like I was only at the 1% of it. Like I feel like I don't know 90%, 99% of the story anymore because they've grown well beyond that. They've expanded into other areas. They're really big now from the revenue side. They're really big now from what their marketplace is, and they're very well known. And I kind of get all the benefits from being there a long time ago, which is great for me. But I'm sure there were more learnings that I missed along the way.
This whole monologue on App 11, that's going to be our clip.
Nice.
That was a good one.
Cool. We should wrap for today.
That was awesome, man.
Furqan works with me across the street, so
Yeah.
anytime we want to do this
That
again,
was
we can
good.
do it again.
So we'll have people.
We'll put your Twitter handle in the bio, in the notes of this, and so people can get follow you, get tweet at you, whatever after this as well.
And we don't know. I'm still uncertain as to how many listeners we have, but I do know that last time I asked for reviews, we got a few hundred of them in a handful of hours, maybe 24, 48 hours. So if you like this one, tweet at him. You can say your handle in a second, and then let us know, and we'll figure out what next to do.
Yep.
Yeah. My handle is Furqan R on Twitter. That's FURQANR.
Awesome. Thank you.